another prose verse, so let me just read, somehow try to get through the Sanskrit. Panayastam sva vidhina visitsya hatena vasasacharya bhusanalepa srak tilakaribhir upaskritan bhuktavantan dhupadipamaya lajakisalayankura palopaharopedaya Vaishasa Sangstaya Mahata Gita Stutimridanga Panava Goshena Sa Purusha Pashung Vajrakalyaha Purata Upaveshayangasuhu Atha. Thereafter Panayaha, all the followers of the dacoit, Tan, him, Jada Bharata, Svavidhina, according to their own ritualistic principles, Abhishitsya, bathing, Hatena, with new Vasasa, garments, Acharya, covering, Bhushana, ornaments, Alipa, smearing the body with sandalwood pulp, Srak, a flower garland, Tilaka Adibhihi, with markings of the body and so on. Upaskritam, completely decorated. Bhuktavantam, having eaten. Rupa, with incense. Deepa, lamps. Maya, garlands. Larger, parched grain. Kisalaya Ankura, twigs and sprouts. Phala, fruits. Upahara, other paraphernalia. Upetaya, fully equipped. Vaishasa Sangstaya, with complete arrangements for sacrifice. Mahata, a great. Gita Stuti, of songs and prayers. Nridanga, of the drums. Panava, of the bugles. Koshena, by vibration. Sa, also. Purusha Pashun, the man animal. Vajrakalyaha, of the goddess Kali. Purataha, just in front. Upaveshayam Ashu, made him sit down. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. After this, all the thieves, according to the imaginative ritual for killing animalistic men, bathed Jada Bharata, dressed him in new clothes, decorated him with ornaments. Please don't speak during the class. Decorated him with ornaments befitting an animal. You complete your conversation first. I start again. After this, all the thieves, according to the imaginative ritual for killing animalistic men, bathed Jadabharata, dressed him in new clothes, decorated him with ornaments befitting an animal, smeared his body with scented oils, and decorated him with tilaka, sandalwood pulp, and garlands. They fed him sumptuously, and then brought him before the goddess Kali, offering her incense, lamps, garlands, parched grain, newly grown twigs, sprouts, fruits, and flowers. In this way they worshipped the deity before killing the man-animal, and they vibrated songs and prayers and played drums and bugles. Jadabharata was then made to sit down before the deity. Purport. In this verse, the word svavidhina, according to their own ritualistic principles, is very significant. According to the Vedic Shastras, everything must be done according to regulated principles. But here it is stated that the thieves and rogues devised their own process for killing an animalistic man. The Tamasic Shastras give instructions for the sacrifice of an animal like a goat or buffalo before the goddess Kali, but there is no mention of killing a man, however dull he may be. This process was manufactured by the dacoits themselves. Therefore, the word svavidhina is used. Even at this time, there are many sacrifices being conducted without reference to the Vedic scriptures. For instance, in Calcutta recently, a slaughterhouse was being advertised as a temple of the goddess Kali. Meat eaters foolishly purchase meat from such shops, thinking it different from ordinary meat and taking it to be the prasada of goddess Kali. The sacrifice of a goat or a similar animal before the goddess Kali is mentioned in Shastras just to keep people from eating slaughterhouse meat and becoming responsible for the killing of animals. The conditioned soul has a natural tendency towards sex and meat eating. Consequently, the Shastras grant them some concessions. Actually, the Shastras aim at putting an end to these abominable activities, but they impart some regulated principles so that gradually meat eaters and sex hunters will be rectified. So, Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnuparaya Krishna Prasthana Bodhaya Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So the main point in this purport is regulation. So human life is meant, if we choose to follow the instructions of the Vedic Shastra, particularly Bhagavatam and Parampara, then human life is a unique opportunity. There's a parable of a blind turtle. So according to this is there's a blind turtle residing in an ocean, and then on the top of the ocean there's a piece of wood with a hole in it floating around. So the turtle is somewhere deep in the ocean, and the piece of wood is floating somewhere in the ocean. Just imagine Atlantic Ocean or a really big ocean. Every 100 years the turtle decides to come up, and then it goes back again and stays 100 years, and then it comes up and goes down for 100 years. So what are the odds that when it comes up, its head just accidentally comes through the hole on that piece of wood?
Almost
That's small, tiny little odds, right? So according to this parable, that's how rare it is to get the opportunity of human life and the opportunity to purify one's existence. In other words, seeking the solution to the problems of birth, disease, old age and death. So it's a rare and unique opportunity, and it's meant for self-purification. And therefore, to purify one's existence is actually one of the fundamental features of what it means to be human. Now, this principle is so important that it's recognized in some form, in this case in a really twisted form, even by people who are actually not following the regulation of the Shastra. Because if you read the description about the sacrifice that is just about to take place, a lot of the items are actually recognizable. They are decorations are there, garlands, sandalwood pulp, all of that. We would recognize many of the items from any Sattvic temple, but there is one detail, and it's not a tiny little detail, that they are going to kill a human being as a sacrifice. That's totally, like Srila Prabhupada is saying here, is their own invention. Actually, the Sanskrit is svavidhi, if I recall correctly. Svavidhi. So vidhi is like a procedure following some system, and sva means it's their own. They just invent it, because there's no such instruction anywhere in Shastra that do a very, very beautiful decoration and offer incense and lamp and singing and playing mridanga. Mridanga is mentioned in this verse. So a lot of the description in this verse sounds like you can go to a Hare Krishna temple and what is going on. However, the fact that there's a great devotee who is just about to be killed is like we should revere great devotees and offer them worship and bow down at their feet, but they are kind of going to the extreme, to the other end of the spectrum, preparing to commit the greatest possible offense by actually committing an act of violence against, in their mind, an ordinary person, but actually the greatest of all saints, Jada Bharata. But the point is that these people, whatever their crazy intentions are, they have actually acquired some inspiration from something that is real, but then due to their tamasic, like twisted intention, they turn that into something which is totally counterproductive for the society. Obviously for Jada Bharata, if he would care, he doesn't. He's kind of, Krishna, if you want to take me today, I'm willing to go. But then ultimately causing the greatest harm to themselves. So basically this verse kind of illustrates in a very fascinating way the ambiguous nature of human life. It's a rare opportunity, should be utilized, but it brings along with it the greatest responsibility. It's actually a very grave responsibility to be a human being. We may not think about that often, because if we actually utilize it by following the due process of purification, then we can gradually take steps to towards at least liberation. That would be like, if everything fails, at least get liberated. But better than that, particularly applying the Bhakti perspective, which is the perspective that Bhagavata Purana is giving us, then to actually try to achieve pure love of God. Bhakti, when yoga is finished, then just pure devotion. So prema, like totally selfless devotion would be the ultimate goal. So that's possible in human life. Even during one single lifetime, it's possible to purify one's existence to an extent that one is ready to move on to the spiritual realm for good, never to return. But if one does not utilize the human life in a good way, but rather concocts one's own method and then brings in one's own selfish desires, such as is the case in this verse. So, like, there are many ingredients which would be recognizable from Shastra, but then there are definitely ingredients which go so radically against the injunctions that the outcome will only be harmful for everyone involved. So the human life is it's a crossroads. So the responsibility is, you can choose to follow Shastra, either take to the path of gradual slow purification or the fast track, which would be applying Bhakti Yoga in one's life and then doing the quickest possible passage out of this universe altogether. But at the same time, if one does not utilize this opportunity, but chooses to dedicate one's life to allowing the senses to interact with their objects and living a selfish life and not really caring about what happens after, then from compared, because here's a discussion about how does it look like when human life starts resembling the life of animals, like just really allowing the lower instincts to take over. Then okay, we are humans because we are using language. Well, animals are also using language. They have their own language, and actually Krishna is the master of all languages. He can also communicate with animals. That's been mentioned. But anyway, so communication does not make human life anyway special. The specialty of human life is the ability to pose existential questions, hear and understand answers to them, and then apply those answers to one's life. Okay, that's special in human life. Anything else is not special for humans. Like Srila Prabhupada is so often making this point that okay, animals are going on 4 legs and the humans are driving on 4 wheels. So going with 4 wheels might be a little faster. What's the fastest animal? I think what's the name? There's a
Leopard.
it's Gepard. Gepard, yeah. So they can speed up to more than 100 kilometers per hour, but not for a long time. Now some birds, when they fly and come down, I don't remember which one is the fastest, that can go even speedier because it's all the way down. It's gravity is helping in that process. But so we can construct something which is going on 4 wheels and then drive like 120 and 160 and really speed up 180 like that. And now this is special. It's really not this preparation for being born as a fast animal actually. That would be because now I have a desire to move fast, and human mobility is limited. The fastest human being can run maybe 40 kilometers per hour, not faster than that. That would be like, then you win the Olympic gold in 100 meters. So just doing what any animal is doing, and with the help of technology trying to kind of do the same thing in an artificial way, kind of enhancing that, that's not categorically different. The other example is that, okay, an animal might sleep in the ground, or a plant just, light is off, let's rest now. Oh, light is on, time to walk to the sun, like that. So a human being then can construct like a waterbed, which is when you jump into it, it's kind of all mobile. It's not hard. It's like, have you ever been in waterbeds? I have explored it once in my life. They are very fascinating because there's no solid place, so you can kind of floating around and like that. So, but the principle is still the same. And once you are asleep, you don't really notice where you are sleeping, isn't it? It's like at that point it gets irrelevant. So it's actually whether you have a waterbed or you're sleeping in the ground. It's a couple of minutes before falling asleep, and then the first couple of minutes when you wake up before you rise. So it's actually like a huge investment, but you experience the value of that investment only during 5 minutes. So anyway, so these are some angles. What about eating? So all the animals are known for eating. So elephants, for instance, the ultimate vegetarians, because according to the report, they can consume like hundreds of kilograms of green leaves on a daily basis. I read this and from Shastra, and then I think that was Srila Prabhupada's purport, and I thought, can this really be true? And then I kind of tried to fact check, and yes, indeed, hundreds of kilos, and when it's like green leaves and that sort of stuff, it means it's a huge dose every day. So anyway, that is provided, but then as a human being, we may have concerns, where will I get my piece of bread? And then the whole, okay, I have to get an education in order to get work, in order to get salary, so I can buy something to eat. So education, how long does that take? So begin with 12 years, that's a normal school system. Then you go to university, you may take a study loan, and after 5 years you graduate, then you go to work, and the first 5 years you are just paying off your loan. For what? How many pieces of bread can you eat? So the argument here is, even if you have a huge salary, then when it comes to eating, it's kind of limited. Whether you can buy billions of pieces of bread or just two, the fact is you can only eat 2 or 3. So the point here, like with these examples, is it takes a lot of time and energy and investment and planning to move on 4 wheels 200 miles per hour, to buy a waterbed, to live in a big building, and to have a large salary, but actually all of this comes to 99% of that is actually extra compared to what is required to just stay alive. So while the suggestion for human beings is not exactly all the time, what Sukadeva Goswami is he's actually making that suggestion in the beginning of second canto. What's the point of buying clothes? You can find clothes that people discard somewhere on the street, or maybe you can go to a flea market and find, okay, for 2 euros you can kind of fill in your closet with recycled clothes. What's the use of getting a pillow? You can just lie down and have your arm as a pillow. So that's cheaper. You don't have to buy it. It's already there. And like that, he's going through all these points, like what do we need for life, and making the argument it's actually possible to live with quite a little. That's his point. Now he's the one who is actually applying it into his life, because he's wandering around without any clothes at all whatsoever. I mean, I don't suggest doing that in Switzerland. Actually, in these days, I would not suggest doing that anywhere. But in South Asian context, the climate could be actually that warm that you don't have to be a super yogi to walk around with very little clothes. There are some ascetic communities. There's a Digambara sect in Jainism, and Digambara means clothes consist from directions. And yeah, Jainism actually meaning that that's it. You are not investing even for one piece of clothes. So Digambaras are taking that literally, Sukadeva Goswami's example, whereas the other sect is called Svetambara because they are wearing a piece of white clothes. So from the Digambara point of view, that's materialistic. You are kind of over endeavoring. So anyway, so but the point is how can we manage and navigate through our life with the idea let's minimize the material necessities rather than increase them. So this can be this is applicable for everyone. Not everyone, most people are not like Jadabharata, like who can just kill me today if you like, or Sukadeva Goswami, why should I wear clothes because they're kind of unnecessary, too much trouble. So most people are not on that level, but the principle applies for human life. So we are in a crossroads, and now we can decide, should I increase the material necessities or should I decrease them? And these are directions. Then you decide, okay, let me gradually decrease my material necessities during this lifetime. And because now I will save time and energy and money, then let me invest those to increase my bhakti. How about that? You're still kind of using and dealing with the same amount of time and energy and resources, but now you can decide, instead of investing them into waterbed number 3 because the 2 previous ones were not quite as comfortable as I hoped for, or whatever, like maybe there's another car which is even faster than the previous one, whatever the material desire that we are talking about, figuring out how can I increase this, rather how can I increase my God consciousness. What about that? So if one makes that sort of decision, then the human life is a unique opportunity for self-purification. So what does self-purification, purification of one's existence means? So there's a key word. The key word Sanskrit is samskara. And it's fascinating how the same word is being used in the rites of passage. Rites of passage means when you go through the important phases in your life. So for instance, giving a name to a child is a rite of passage. It's communal, everyone is gathering, and now your name will be Govinda. How about that? That would be a good name, because if you just remember the name of your child, you might perfect your life, because if it's a name of God, then you would, remembering your child, you would be purified. That's a samskara. It's not only what is going on when the name is given, but if it's the right kind of name, then it acts as a purifying component during the rest of one's life, both for the child and for the parents and for their friends, for instance. Just like in the story of Ajamila, who called for his son, who he fortunately named Narayana in the end of his life, and got a second chance. There's a whole book. It's based on Srila Prabhupada's lectures, series of lectures called Second Chance. Because here our main character, Ajamila, kind of wasted most of his life doing what is not advisable, namely increasing the material necessities, and not always in the best and most honorable means. So he accumulated a lot of bad merits, bad karma, in other words. In the end of his life, however, when he was scared, what will happen? This is the last moment, I will leave. And he became aware that he has to face the consequences of his bad actions. So he called for his son, who he named Narayana. Narayana, Narayana, and that nullified everything. It's kind of, when your computer is on for too long time, like 2 days or 3 days, and you're doing many things, it just gets totally stuck. at one point nothing works. What do you have to do? You just boot it. Put off the power and then put it on again. And now you have a fresh start. So just calling for his son by the name Narayana, that's the power of the holy name. It's a reboot of the whole system. Now, starting from zero. And then he actually, that's in the 6th canto, the next one. So there's a whole discussion between Yamadutas and Vishnudutas. The messengers of death and the messengers of God are having a conversation. What a conversation to witness. But Ajamila got to witness that conversation. And they were conversing. Messengers of death are saying, this man is sinful, we need to take him, he has to face the consequences of this karma. And Vishnudutas are saying, no, he's no longer that, because he just got purified. So, point is samskara. There are many kinds of samskaras. So samskara, the word, refers to the reactions of our previous activities. That's a general term. We are accumulating samskaras all the time. Most of the samskaras they can be subdivided into 2 categories actually. So samskaras go with 2 names. One name of samskara is called karmashaya. Karmasaya means what kind of reactions you get later on. And karmasaya consists of experiences, the body in which you are born, and the span of life. All of these 3 are based on past activities accumulated in the form of samskaras, which are called karmashaya. Now there's another category of samskara going under the name vasana. And vasana means tendency. So we have a tendency to repeat whatever we have done before, and by repeating it many times, it gets stronger. So how to create a strong vasana? There are basically 2 kind of components. One is repetition. Anything, even it's a kind of innocent little thing, let's say like reading news, it may not be a big experience unless the news are somewhat extraordinary. But most of the time nothing is really going on. You're reading the news, it's the same story as yesterday with some modification. It's not that the world is fundamentally different on a daily basis. But when you just keep on doing that every day, just by the force of repetition, it just at one point becomes, I cannot live my life without my daily dose of news. Because now I've created a vasana by repetition for news. So one can get addicted. So when vasana is strong, we are talking about addiction, except the vasana can be strong, but if it's culturally acceptable, then we are not somehow calling it addiction, even though it is. So we tend to call harmful vasanas addictions, like intoxication habit, whereas reading news or walking your dog, that's not called addiction. But in terms of vasana, it's just the same thing. By the power of repetition, you are developing a strong habit, and the habit then becomes part of you, and then it's really difficult to even figure out that I could act differently. And the collection of vasanas is called svabhava, my nature in this lifetime. So it's just essentially a collection of many samskaras which group in vasanas. So the other way of creating a powerful habit, vasana, is instead of repetition you have a powerful experience. It can be negative, it can be positive, but if it's really powerful, then it leaves a mark. If you place your hand on a hot stove, maybe once is enough, you will not do it again, because you hurt yourself and you will remember it. Or do anyone in this room feel attracted to eating newspaper? Eating newspaper.
Interesting
Yeah.
idea.
Like putting it in your mouth? You like that?
No, I used to taste paper.
You
Because
It's so tough.
yeah, you tried it. Yeah. So, if you think you know how newspaper tastes, raise your arm. Nobody is admitting. But I claim most people intuitively know how it tastes even though they don't remember the last time they ate it.
Oh,
Actually, isn't it? You
I
have some-
wrapped some medicine in paper and ate it.
Yeah. Children are known for putting everything in their mouth. So why are we not eating newspapers when instead we read them? Why are we not putting them in our mouth? One theory is we tried that out already when we were 2 years old, and we have the vasana. It's kind of, we don't really remember the experience, what a tasty piece of newspaper. Or the other way, no, this is not really good. So anyway, many of our vasanas, we are instinctively not doing something because we had an experience once. We may not remember the details of that experience, but it's still with us. We are still carrying that with us. So these are vasanas, and then there are samskaras, the experiences. Now the vicious circle with these two is one part of samskaras are the karmas, they are bringing us experiences, and the other set is vasanas, how we respond to that. And when we respond to it, we are creating new samskaras. We are strengthening our vasana, and we are acquiring new karma, new experiences. So it seems like this has no end. But there's a solution to this. So the word samskara has the double meaning. Not all samskaras are bad. So some samskaras are actually part of the solution. So these are the bhakti samskaras, knowledge samskaras related to spirituality. And so the rites of passage, such as name-giving ceremony, initiation, marriage, these are all meant to bring in other kinds of samskaras. Instead of living my life to fulfill my selfish ends, can I figure out a way of putting God in the center instead of myself in the center? So particularly the bhakti samskaras all would, in different ways, there are rituals and there are details, and maybe offering an incense, and maybe there's a fire and there are mantras being chanted. So many details are there. There's a particular way of going about it. But all of these details have one common component. You are not the center. God is at the center. That's the difference. And these kind of samskaras act as purifying agents. So accumulating them will purify the influence of the previous samskaras, and then they will also create a kind of tendency towards selflessness, devotion, thirst for real spiritual knowledge about the true nature of myself, the world, the origin of everything, all that. So samskaras in general, it's not only rites of passage, but that's a particular name that is being used. These are particular ceremonies meant to create particularly strong, good spiritual impressions. But other than that, we are actually, if we take spiritual life seriously, we should not restrict it to some special selected occasions. We should try to endeavor to make it a point to accumulate purifying samskaras every day. And so that's the power, it has a name, it's called sadhana. Now, Bhagavad Gita is using the word abhyasa, means regular practice. So whatever you do, like in the science of samskara says, if you have a powerful experience, then that may leave a mark with very little repetition. But most of the time, the principle is you have to repeat it. So repetition, doing it on a regular basis, is the first principle that one needs to apply in the process of purification. Do it every day, okay? Just like if you make it a principle to chant japa, recite the names of God every day, that's unbelievably powerful. Because now I'm doing something which Ajamila did only once in the end of his life, and he had a reboot of his whole system by that. How about if you can do it every day? How wonderful is that? Now, because there's so much stuff. We have been accumulating samskaras based on ignorance for countless lifetimes, always putting ourselves in the center. Then to deal with that may take some time. So the second characteristic of a good process of purification, that it's a long-lasting one. Meaning you don't only do it 1 week or 2 weeks. Sometimes people go to meditation retreats and yoga retreats, and that lasts for 1 week and 2 weeks, and the experience is wonderful. But then they go home, and what just happens? It's all forgotten. Maybe next year again. So it's much 2 weeks is good, but the 2 decades is much better. So because you need to accumulate this new pattern a long time in order to counteract the influence of the old pattern. But then let's bring in the third component, which is actually the intention. So intention behind any act is like half of the outcome, to say the least. It's not that the act itself does not matter, but have you not experienced, at least I have experienced a number of times, I'm doing something and thinking of something else. I barely even remember what I did. I was just reminded I had a phone call with a friend of mine yesterday, and he told me that I did something a little silly some time ago, and I, oh, thanks for telling me, because I did not pay attention. I wouldn't have remembered at all the whole thing. So paying attention is based on intention, and intention is based on this is important. Now, considering something as important can manifest in many different ways. When it comes to bhakti, we can consider that the bhakti is important for a number of reasons. So for instance, Kamsa, the sworn enemy of Krishna, was always thinking of Krishna. So that's a bhakti practice. But why? Because he was afraid of Krishna, and he hated Krishna, and he wanted to kill Krishna. That's not really the best intention to have, but at least there's an intention. So that really made him think of Krishna all the time. So he got actually purified as a result of that. Another motive, which is actually somehow, there are some religions which seem to emphasize this motive, is fear. Like, look, you are going to hell unless you take shelter of this process. And then constant reminder of fear of God, fear of punishment, all that. Now, that's possible. One can, at least for a time being, create a strong intention to take shelter of a spiritual practice. But do you know what's the problem with these kind of motivations, fear and anger and all of these? Bhagavad Gita 7 point, I think the verse is 16, when Krishna is analyzing the 4 kinds of people who are approaching him. Then the 4th one, the Jnani, is then both by Krishna and in the commentarial tradition is promoted as the best, because they are the people who actually know what they are doing. Now, if you are turning to God because you are suffering, out of fear would be one such instance, or desire for wealth, or just out of curiosity. There's no problem in turning to God for any reason, but the problem with these motivations is that when the problem is solved, then how will I now find motivation for my practice? Because I turn to God because I have toothache, okay? And then the tooth gets fixed and the pain disappears. And then, okay, bye-bye God, thanks for fixing my tooth, and I will now continue as if nothing happened. So that's known to be a problem with motivations which are arising from lower mode, experience of suffering and that. So if that is going on right now, utilize it. That's a real energy. Don't imagine it's not there. That said, part of serious spiritual practice always contains also some idea, let me also purify my motivations, let me try to seek a deeper way of getting inspired. How about doing bhakti yoga out of love? How does that sound? So, I mean, that would bring in the right kind, both intention, but then a conducive intention, and from the bhakti theory point of view, an intention which will only continue increasing in time, and while it continues increasing, it also brings the practitioners gradually closer to the final goal of the practice, because then bhakti is ultimately defined as love, pure love, selfless love. So cultivate that. Any kind of positive sattvic intention would work though, because sattva by its nature is sustainable. So doing bhakti out of compassion or out of benevolence because I want to be of use for others, out of desire to be friendly with others, these sort of motivations would be fine because they are sattvic. But the best one is to have a transcendental motive, like I want to do it just because that's the nature, true nature, deepest nature of the soul. So Mahaprabhu's teaching, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the eternal nature of every soul is to be a servant of Krishna, and lovingly so. We are not talking about a reality TV God. You know, reality TV is putting people in difficult situations, and then everyone can watch when they are trying to figure out how they survive on this lonely island with only a few matchsticks, and that's it. Let's see who will freak out first. So Krishna is not like that. We are not part of his reality TV show because he's bored in the spiritual world. He has to figure out, oh, I'm so bored, let's create a material world and watch what these guys are doing. That's not the case. He's deeply concerned out of love for us. So he's saying that in Bhagavad Gita 5th chapter, last verse. What does Krishna say? What is the recipe for peace? Bhaktaram yagyatapasam sarvalokam hesvaram surinam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim rikshati. One reaches shanti or peace by understanding Krishna to be the actual enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, the proprietor and master of all worlds, but Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, the best well-wishing friend of all beings. So he's really just wishing well for us. Just thinking about that can be extremely inspiring. Right now he's sitting in our heart and trying to get our attention. So the Bhagavatam class is all meant for that. Like, hey, Krishna wants to have our attention, and Bhagavatam class is meant to remind us, hey, how about turning my attention towards Krishna, who is like really interested in my attention? Because that's the only thing he doesn't have. He has everything. He's the origin of everything. He's the source of unlimited universes in the form of Mahavishnu. When he's breathing out, unlimited universes emanate out from the pores of his skin. Then they exist for some trillions of years. Then they go in when he inhales. That's Krishna in the form of Mahavishnu manifesting universes. So he has everything because he's the source of everything. But there's one thing he doesn't have, our attention. So let's give our attention to him. That's the ultimate method of purification. All the other methods of purification following Shastra are meant because most people are not willing to turn their attention to Krishna as yet. So therefore there are so many different systems given in the Vedic scriptures. Follow any one of them is auspicious, but bringing in some crazy, aggressive, violent ingredients is not auspicious. That's actually detrimental. It's being described in this verse, which is fascinating because it has ingredients of real process, but then it also has this ingredient which spoils everything, bringing one's own selfishness, violent nature into the center of an otherwise good activity, which would be showing reverence to a higher power anyway. So that's it. for now. Do you have any questions or comments? Yes?
Hare Krishna, in one book about chanting, I was reading the importance of one round of chanting. It's like a complete offering to Radha and Krishna, and we would not, if you do arati, stop in the middle of the arati, but we should always finish our round. And then it's mentioned that 4 rounds are like one granta, and then can you say something about the importance of like the length, the duration of our chanting, and that we really created some scholars in the
Yeah, which book was that?
Sorry?
Which book was that? I'm just curious.
It's what is the name? The Art of Chanting.
Oh, Mahanidis?
Yes.
Okay, then. Does he offer the references where the information is coming from? Do you remember?
I remember the passage. I can show you, but I
Yeah.
don't
So,
know the
anyway,
source.
that's not really important. So, commitment to a certain kind of, okay, 1 round or 4 rounds without interruption. So, yeah, I bring in the angle of contemporary science to kind of just bring in another angle to this. So actually studies show that most people, this is most people, there are some exceptions on both directions, but most people actually with some practice can develop an ability to be fully focused on one thing only without interruption for 90 minutes to 2 hours. That seems to be humanly possible. It takes practice, but people who are studying flow states, flow state means, let's say you are working, and then you enter a flow state where you are just moving on with your work without any interruptions and accomplishing a lot, and time flies and you don't even notice, and you are just carried away by the wave of the flow. And it's wonderful, feels wonderful, and why cannot it always be like that? Well, first, it can, but it requires practice. So it is actually natural. There are some characteristics of the flow state. One is relaxed, one is inspired, and whatever one is doing, one likes it. It's natural. There's some natural inclination towards that. So now when we are applying this perspective to chanting, relaxed, that's doable. Just extend your spine and relax the bed, at least your face and your chin and your shoulders and abdomen. Just make a quick check. Face, chin, abdomen, like shoulders. If these are relaxed, a lot of that department is done. Then about breathing. There's a way to breathe in a way which increases agitation, and there's a way to breathe which relaxes. So learn the art of relaxing breathing and bring that into the japa. But then the third, how to be inspired. Because japa, by definition, it has no components which are of the form of material entertainment. So while japa, the holy names of the Lord, are realizable for the soul itself, at the same time they are kind of the total 180-degree opposite to what is going on in the materialistic mind. So that's the point. So it's really good to make a point to actually, if you can, more than 1 round, actually 4 rounds starts sounding like a really good idea, because now there's a real chance that you can overcome the initial resistance of the materialistic mind and start actually experiencing what is actually going on the level of the spirit. So that's why now from the point of view of flow studies, consider that, let's say, 90 minutes of continuous concentration is humanly possible. So now if you chant 1 round and then, okay, I have completed 1 round and now I do something different. Okay, you completed 1 round, you got purified, but you probably did not, at least not every time, enter the state of, hey, this is fun. Whereas if you actually go on for at least 4 rounds, but preferably 8 rounds or even 12 rounds on one go, there's a real chance that on a daily basis at one point you experience, hey, this is nice. I'm actually entering a state which feels like a flow. Now that creates another powerful sanskara. One part of it is you are just getting purified. It's not a just, it's really important. But the other one is, if I actually, even for 3 minutes experience, oh, this is wonderful, I'm now in connection with Krishna in the form of his names, then that creates the other, like, hey, that might be the best moment of the day. Can't wait until next morning because I felt that yesterday and felt it today as well, you know? So that's why I would recommend, I mean, it's a lot. I understand. People who have works and families, finding 90 minutes can really be a stress. So Srila Prabhupada said when he was running a business and family and all that, it was a busy life. He would do 4 rounds, and then another set of 4 rounds, then another set of 4 rounds. But at least sometimes experiment with, is it possible to go 90 minutes or 2 hours on one go without doing anything else? Put off your cell phone to get started. Early morning is good because that's the time of least distractions. Can be done any time of the day, but that's when the mind tends to be naturally inclined to focus anything which is sattvic. And japa is the most sattvic, is Suddha sattvic activity. But in somehow or other, at least like maybe once a week have a day when you can just have a full and long lasting attention on japa. To give it a chance, to really give it your best shot so that you can enter the zone, or japa zone, you know. It's a special zone, it's a special flow state because now you are interacting with Krishna. What could be more wonderful than that? So I'm not saying like 1 round or 4 rounds. These are wonderful ideas, but I really would like anyone who somehow, at least sometimes, can explore 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 75 minutes, 90 minutes. That can really change everything, because then when you enter that deeper experience of japa, then that will stay with you. You will remember that, oh, that's possible, I want to have that again. And that can become like a really powerful motivation, because now it's no longer a practice, now it's no longer a rule, now it's no longer a daily duty. It's actually a powerful spiritual experience. So anyway, that's kind of not in any way like trying to disagree with anything you said, but I just thought, yeah, let's develop this further. And so it just turns out that for quite a few people, what Srila Prabhupada prescribed 16 rounds a day, it kind of correlates with that. It seems like that's humanly possible for quite a few people. It's a big thing. Most people will not do it, let's face it. But it's not superhuman either. Humans come to this world with the capacity of developing that kind of skill. So, yeah, so that would be a good idea. Anyway.
Thank you for combining the scientific aspect to the japa and this creating samskaras. And also what I experience, it always takes for me like 1 hour, and then I come to this state, not always, but sometimes. And I see when we stop before, then we hindrance us of this experience, and we will never make this experience. And so in combination with Sankirtan book distribution, also heard that the first 3 hours is like Jayananda who is testing us or something, and then it's just ecstatic. And I see also many devotees, they stop before these 3 hours and never experience the Sankirtan bliss. So we just have to continue a little bit more.
Yeah. My recommendation for them is to try out 4 weeks, 8 hours a day. The first week is poison, but then the second week is, oh, this is possible. And third week can actually get really nice. Yeah, anyway. So anything else? Anyway. Okay, we end here. Thank you very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Krishna Prabhu ke
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jayananda schreibt, ich habe Radha Krishna aufgegeben für Gauranga, Jayananda und Jayananda. Voll offensiv. Wie viele hast du geschafft in der Beziehung? 12. Ah, 12. Du hast ein bisschen später angefangen. Und noch gleich in der Beziehung. Nein, warte, das kann sein. 10 Minuten. Lass mich Krishna. Gut. Das ist meine Krishna. Jetzt zusammen Silber nach Krishna. Sankirtan. Together. Nice separation to more powerful than association. Wir haben zusammen chanted, so ist wir mal wir haben zusammen und die Entschlüsse. Jetzt nehmen wir Separation. Falsch, Mann. Der kommt in die Schule, wenn du wieder kommst.
something to the mankind. It's,
That's a good message to have.
yeah, yeah. We had a meeting 3 days back with some clinicians from Munich.
Clinic people.
They give some advice, the clinic capabilities for the people. Because there are like people can move, they can swallow, so there are many problems.
Because of paralysis.
Yes.
Paralysis.
Yeah, and also liver doesn't work.
But how do you deal with because so often many of our modern drugs, medicaments, they are very potent, and there is also side effects.
Ah,
It's also
yeah,
quite potent.
Yeah, there is the side effect, but I don't think so. It will have side effect. I assume because we give kind of small molecule kind of drug, special kind of drug, compared to what is in the modern drug. Modern drug is very easy or good stuff. So we are not going to that modality, which is more challenging. And it is against the brain and cardiac this time. Which is more challenging.
How you can design
Yeah.
design it so specifically.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's exactly this reason why I said designing particularly to go to the brain. Specific design to the heart.
Yes, we also have something designed to go to the heart.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That's exactly. That's why whenever it comes to get energy, that's why you have to do the karma, Whatever he has ordered, okay, do this, do this. Okay.
You have time for the show?
Oh yeah, okay.
Yes, please take. Thank you. Thank you so much for this invitation and all the best.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I will see you.
Nice to you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
some incense?
Uh,
I can bring you some.
you can do that maybe next time. You're sitting. I don't want to disturb you.
I can